Hello students, welcome to Early Edge. So today we'll be discussing a very simple topic under biology, which is tissues. Now you all know what tissues are, right? So tissues are an aggregation of cells or a group of cells. Okay, so a group of cells that perform similar functions are called tissues. So you know that cells will group together and they will form a type of tissue. Now under tissues we have different types. Okay, the first one is meristematic tissue and the other one is permanent tissue. Now meristematic tissues are tissues or cells that are in a continuous state of division. So usually where do you find meristematic cells? Those cells are actually responsible for uh, continuous growth of plants. Now you know that plants grow continuously throughout their life, right? Now that is possible because of a group of cells called meristematic cells. Now these are in a continuous state of division, dividing all the time, and they're present in different regions of a plant. So according to their location, there are three different types of meristematic tissues. Okay, the first one is apical meristem. Apical, present at the apex of a plant. Okay, so now in case of apical meristem, they're found at the tips of plants. Now in this case, in this diagram, this is found at a shoot tip, or otherwise it can also be found in the tips of roots. So if you try, you can try this at home with a simple experiment, where if you keep onion bulbs in a glass of water so that just the tip of it is touching water, after a week you will see that it has started sprouting roots. So how is that possible? That is because of the presence of meristematic cells that are present at that region. So they will start growing continuously and they are responsible for increase in length of the plant. So the shoot apical meristem will increase the length of the shoot in this direction, upward direction, and the root apical meristem, it will increase the length of the plant in the downward direction. So overall, apical meristems will contribute to the longitudinal growth of a plant. Okay, so growth of the plant in the longitudinal axis is because of apical meristem. Then we have intercalary meristem. Now intercalary meristem is usually found in the internodal regions, meaning this is the nodal region, and in the internodal region between two nodes there is the internodal region where intercalary meristem is present. Now that is responsible for rapid elongation of the plant. So not just from the tips, growth can also happen in between, right? So that is intercalary meristem. Usually we find these in grasses where it will lead to rapid elongation of the grass leaf. Okay, and then we have lateral meristems. Lateral meaning sides. What does a lateral meristem do? It is found on either sides of the plant and it is responsible for growth in this direction. What direction? What axis is this? Horizontal axis. Okay, so lateral meristem is responsible for increase in girth of the plant. What is girth? Width. Okay, increase in width of a plant is because of lateral meristems. So apical and intercalary meristems contribute to increase in length of a plant, which is growth in the vertical axis or longitudinal axis, whereas lateral meristems will contribute to growth of the plant in the horizontal axis, which is increase in width of a plant. Okay, so this is possible because of a group of cells called meristematic cells, and the meristematic cells are in a continuous state of division, like I said before. So they actually have very thin cell walls and abundant cytoplasm and a very prominent nucleus. Now meristematic cells are what transform themselves into permanent tissues or permanent cells. So this transformation of meristematic cell to permanent cell, That process is called differentiation. Differentiation is the process by which meristematic cells transform themselves into permanent cells. So what constitutes differentiation? It is like assigning a function to meristematic cells. Now meristematic cells simply keep on growing. Okay, they contribute to the length of the plant, they contribute to the width of the plant, but certain meristematic cells will undergo a process called differentiation, wherein their shape will change, their size will change, their function is assigned. Okay, so like that there can be different changes in the cell whereby it is assigned to a particular location in the plant and it is assigned a particular function to perform within that plant. Okay, so such cells are called permanent cells, and permanent cells do not have the capacity to divide continuously. That is the difference between meristematic and permanent cells. Okay, meristematic cells are continuously dividing, whereas permanent cells do not have the capacity to keep on dividing. Okay, so under permanent cells we have simple and complex permanent tissues. So under permanent tissues we're going to talk about two different types, which is simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Now a simple permanent tissue consists of only one kind of cells. Examples, we have parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma. Now, parenchyma cells make up the major part of a plant. For example, in case of root, the major part of the root is actually made of parenchyma cells. Okay, so parenchyma cells, they are not really specialized to perform any particular function, but they generally make up the most of the body part of a plant. That is parenchyma cells, simple thin-walled cells with a prominent vacuole and a nucleus. And then we have collenchyma cells, which is a living mechanical tissue. So parenchyma and collenchyma cells are living cells, wherein collenchyma cells are mechanical cells, or it's a mechanical tissue that provides extra support to a particular plant part. For example, you've seen climbers, right? In plants, you've seen climbers that will climb, or tendrils where they will wrap around a particular support to grow further, right? So such parts will have collenchyma in them of the plant. Okay, so that is possible because of the presence of collenchyma cells. And then we have sclerenchyma cells, very hard and dead tissues, wherein this tissue is made entirely of dead cells because of deposition of a lot of cell wall materials, secondary cell wall materials. Okay, so your sclerenchyma tissue is usually found in hard parts of the plant, like seed coat, and we have your nut walls, right, in the fruit walls of nuts. So in such plant parts we will find sclerenchyma tissue, which is dead mechanical tissue which provides mechanical support. So parenchyma, collenchyma and sclerenchyma are tissues that are simple, meaning composed of only one type of cells, whereas the other type, which is complex permanent tissue, we have xylem and phloem, where we have different types of cells. Those cells are actually different in their function, they're different in their size, in their shape, everything. So different types of cells will make up one single tissue, and that is called a complex permanent tissue. Clear? So under examples of complex permanent tissues, we have xylem and phloem. Now xylem is the mechanical tissue, or what do we call it? Xylem and phloem are together called vascular tissues. And what does xylem do? It helps in transport of water and minerals. So water and minerals are transported by xylem, whereas phloem helps in the transport of food. And when I say food within a plant, what do I mean? It is Yes, glucose, but specifically it is transported in the form of sucrose. Okay, so xylem helps in transport of water and minerals within the plant, and phloem helps in the transport of food in the form of glucose and sucrose mainly. Okay, so this is complex permanent tissue where both xylem and phloem are composed of many different types of cells. Okay, so specifically there are 4 different types of cells that will compose xylem and phloem. Okay, so more about this we will talk later. Thank you, students.